Merci. Thank you for having had patience with us in a little pause. So this is our first meeting of the virtual meeting, Virtual Academy for the European Investment Bank. So we're dealing with SME banking and finance. So we're looking at setting up mechanisms in West Africa and Central Africa for micro entrepreneurs in particular. And we've had panels and discussions on various aspects. We're talking about women, talking about green finance, and going into the next of these presentations and the sessions themselves, which have been taking place, will be available after this, and you'll be able to have a look at them for a week, and then you'll be able to hear the recordings during that week. There we are, and they will go onto our website. What's the next panel? The fourth panel. It's talking about digitalization and a way to digitize financial services in West and Central Africa. And I'm going to introduce the moderator for the session on the theme. So it's Benoît Denis, who's a senior economist in the digital infrastructure of IIB in Luxembourg. And so he's worked in Europe, in Africa, and Middle East on these sorts of themes. So he's worked with public companies, with funds, and a number of players, and also questions aspects of security and electronics, and technology and financial technology as well. So Benoît Denis is a senior economist. So he has a doctorate in this domain. So I'm going to hand over to him, and he's going to present us the panelists for this session. So thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this session, which is something which I have very much at heart. It's a major factor for inclusion, and I'm very satisfied. We have a video to have a look at, which deal with these topics. So we have a laptop, and I have something on my wrist as well. The impact of the pandemic on your activity. So we had face-to-face lectures, and we've had working online as well. So there's been able. So it was very useful to us to be able to, after I've been able to go and help conscious raising of people. What's the impact of a loan on your work? So for the penetration, if we have these digital appliances, we find it much more difficult to contact people who maybe don't have mobile telephones and so on. We have an identity bracelet. So if they lose their bracelet, they're lost. So thank you. I'm going to maybe ask my friends to present themselves. Okay, so I'm working at IDB. I'm CFO. So I'm Sephora. Sabine Pugbo, Senior Manager, FNPC at DRC, and Democratic Republic of Congo. I work on financing. I've been looking after the projects in this line for 6 years. I went to university in Abidjan. I got a master's. That's the basics. We're going to learn a lot of things, I'm sure, from you. Nicolas Pichou. I'm General Société Générale Cameroon. Société Générale is one of the major, so 2.5 million individual account holders, and about the same again for commercial. This has been, I've spent 8 years in various African countries learning my trade in this domain. It would be very interesting to have your perspective, to your outlook on these topics. Emin, who are you? So thank you very much. Well, so I'm the director for Deloitte for Tunisia. Sorry, it's breaking up. So this is the effect that I'm working in computerization and IT. I'm looking at things from a strategic point of view. Alphabet, apologies, he broke up. And last but not least, we have Wakil Ajibi. Who are you? Tell us about yourself. Monsieur Wajibi, Ajibi.
Monsieur Wakil, nous entendons. Super.
Yep, we hear you. So I'm Wakil Ajibi. I'm the Director General, CEO of Vital Finance for the Benin. That's one of the microfinancing companies in Benin. We've been working in this field for 3 years, and we have offices, about 20 offices throughout Benin. So I've spent about 20 years in the field of microfinances, and I'm a member of several networks which discuss microfinancing. Thank you very much. This is very interesting, given the evolution of this sector. What I'd like to do is to start with Deloitte has done quite a lot of work on this, so we to start with Emin. Emin, can you tell us a little bit more about the major trends which we have for particular elements, notably the last account which was published in this field? So he's breaking up quite a lot. I'm sorry. He's broken up.
We're at about 10% of banking activities, less than 25% of people with financial institutions. So whatever the technology of the institution, despite the fact that we have almost 700 structures, But yes, we have a use of cash that is quite high for 95% of people. This is the main means of transaction that is being used. Nevertheless, nowadays we see the emergence of the mobile payments, which are increasing with a lot of members registered. We're talking about more than 500 million registered people in Africa, which is quite a high number. 35% of people who declare using mobile money or using their mobile as a payment mode, not as the main mode, but they use it more or less alongside the bank. And these are some trends that give us some hope. And today we have between 150 and 200 structures who are dealing with mobile money in Africa as a general rule, which represents about 50% of what is in existence at the moment on a global scale. It's interesting, especially with the penetration of 4G and mobile internet, which keeps improving. So within that particular context, we have carried out several studies and several interviews in order to see what are the main digitalization projects at the moment and what are the biggest trends, what are the major trends that we can see taking place at the moment and for years, the next few years to come. The first trend, I think, that is quite important is the apparition of online banking. I think that we have seen that there has been an increase in activity in that area over the last few years, and this carries on in that same vein with the development of quite a number of new solutions. So we're talking especially about Africa Pay, which is a presence in about 20 countries, eBaby, which is on the Burundi territory. We're talking about Lydia, Eversen. We have multiple examples, and we see several projects, either in terms of developments of neobanks, which are banks which offer some alternative services, and they rely especially on some investments, or on some banks that are 100% digital. And the legislative framework is also adapting itself. We know that we could have some problems with electronic signatures, for example, and with commitments, etc. But the legislative area is adapting itself accordingly as these products are coming to market, because this is an overall trend that will be quite important, especially over the next few years. Secondly, from what we saw for a number of years now, and yet we are at a second wave of it now, we are talking about the digital transformation of sales, and I think that we're the first wave to start with. Where this worked for quite a while, and now what we're seeing is that we have a rise in itself. It's not a new version, but we have a rise in such activities with all these digital applications where you can basically offer some search digital services. And what is important these days, the French interpreter apologizes, but the quality of the line is very bad. So we have a number of digital services. The third point, and I think that we have spoken a little bit of this in the background, which is that we're talking about an identity, maybe a national identity, and half of the population which lives in Africa. This is a major issue for the development, and straight away with the eco-development of the mobile payments, and we can see emerging a number of new things in Pan-African Africa, in Rwanda, in Congo, and a number of national projects which are aimed at giving a digital identity and that are interesting for the development of online payment services. And I think that this is quite an important trend that will come and boost the development of a number of digital services around finance in general. And the fourth point, and this is the last main trend, this is around the modernization of the payment systems on one end, but especially the interoperability, where we have seen a number of projects to enable some platforms to be compatible, first of all, on national level, with in terms of mobile payments and digital payments, and we have gone from this national interoperability to some more important projects, cross-border projects, with the BCAO, in terms of the GNAC region, member states of the SADC, with the CIRES project, and there is therefore a strong will to foster this trend and set up the necessary interoperability so that the payment services could connect between themselves and provide as best a service as possible for the users. So 4 main trends: online banking and the neobanks, the digital transformation, the impact on the modernization and providing the services, the digital identity, which is very important, and once again, the interoperability and the modernization of the interbanking systems as a whole. Many thanks for this overview. I feel that the 4 main trends really illustrate the situation well. And I think that the most interesting thing is to go straight to a concrete case. Maybe Nicolas for the Société Générale, I think that you have a presentation for us. Yes? Hello, everybody. Many thanks for giving me the floor. So, as I mentioned, Société Générale is a big bank in Cameroon, and the digitalization of our activities is a multidimensional affair. And to mention the different transformation levels leading us to greater digitalization, I will first talk about the digitalization offered to our clients, and then, as Heyman mentioned, what have we set up internally in order to digitalize ourselves, which is probably the hardest thing. And then finally, I will mention the constraints and the aspirations that are ours in this particular area. So first of all, in terms of digitalization for our clients, I think that for us as one of the oldest banks in Cameroon, it was about supporting a movement that was already present, and therefore to wonder about the added value of digitalization for our clients. So we are striving to provide them with as much information as possible on the status of their transactions, all of this, of course, in real time and all the time, and also to enable them to initiate themselves their own transactions. And this is how, for more than 5 years, we have offered some e-banking products. So all our small and medium enterprises clients and also professionals, in terms of transactions and functionalities, we're also trying to develop some push tools such as push SMS, so forth for the transactions, and also for the transactions of mobile monies that are taking a bigger space. Some figures to illustrate what I'm talking about. These days we have 90,000 private customers using our e-banking applications and 6,000 small and medium enterprises, which represents 20,000 daily users. And today, the Société Générale in Cameroon, 95% of the domestic transactions that we process are emitted from an e-banking application, which is absolutely huge in just a few years. So, as I was saying to start with, the digital transformation is already part of our clients' culture, and it's about supporting that movement that is going forward. And in terms of our levers, the good understanding of the gains engendered by new digitalization, gaining time, no need to travel, gaining money also, gains in terms of transparency because they have the information straight away, and also in terms of safety and security of their operations and transactions. We can always go further. As Heyman mentioned, part of the population is still staying on the buy side, and each month we have some digital days in our agencies, which could enable our clients who might be quite reticent or fearful about using mobile banking, how they could use these mobile services. So another lever that we have is the digitalization of ourselves, digitalizing ourselves, and each day I have many documents to sign. This still remains very important. And yet the banking vocabulary is really marked by the terms used with the use of papers. We're very far from the fintech digital culture that Ayman mentioned, and we needed to be aware of the need and necessity to transform ourselves. So the first step was to scan all the documents. It's not yet quite digital, but yet we are digitalizing some paper documents that will manage electronically, which means that we will gain in terms of productivity and monitoring. And we also have set up some digital workflow tools which enable us to measure our productivity and the time it takes to carry out the operations, with some tools such as to measure the time to yes and also the time to cash, which is very important for monitoring the quality. We also have some tools in terms of establishing relationship, granting credits, and also detecting fraudulent transactions or suspect transactions, especially regarding money laundering or tackling terrorism. Also some tools in terms of international transfers, international trade, in order to respect the relevant legislation and the monitoring of the commercial trades and fluxes and so forth. COVID-19 enabled us to go further by setting up some digital agencies, as we are testing them in Cameroon, which means that the clients can now go to a particular place where they have an interface in the form of a screen, and they can address an advisor, and this enables us to have a pool of advisors in order to address a greater number of customers than usual, which means that we can demultiply our points of contact with our clients. So, to conclude that part about digitalization, I would say that the digitalization transformation levers open many pathways for banks, including the oldest ones, without being fintechs. And we can say that these days we're not scared of being disrupted or disruptive, and we can seize the opportunities that the new technologies offer us, whilst sticking to the strong regulatory framework. And this leads me to raise the constraints of digitalization. First of all, we need to have a first lever, which is some IT infrastructures that will be really solid. This is indispensable with the capacity for the servers and a very strong bandwidth. We also need to be able to monitor all our fluxes, all our flows permanently in order to ensure a constant service for our clients, which is not always the case, but it becomes more and more the case. And also with a level of IT security and safety that is very high when we know what happened, for example, yesterday with the GAFAM, as a few GAFAM failed yesterday. We did not think this would be possible until very recently, and we can see that this could happen to anybody. Nobody is immune from that, and this has led us to invest strongly in IT. Then secondly, the capacity to evolve very quickly, and that's we have therefore developed some methods to act and deploy, which means that we are very much in contact with developers and jobs in order to have a time to market that is as short as possible. And then the capacity to scale, which is to each day be able to deal with more transactions This has gone very quickly from a few transactions to a few hundreds of transactions and then a few thousand transactions. And we need to be able to ensure and offer the same safety and security levels. And our aspirations, of course, is to have a greater autonomization for our clients, which means that our clients can be further away from us, and therefore we still need to be able to maintain a contact by remaining close with our clients, especially with small and medium enterprises, in order to support them in their growth cycle. And then finally, we have to be able to demonstrate when faced with fintechs and GAFAM that we too also are able to remain in that race by offering some added value products that respect the regulatory and legal framework. So, as for ourselves, we're a bank present on the African continent for a very long time, and we can see the different stakeholders in place, and we need to be able to industrialize very quickly and deploy some digital tools that will add some added values to our clients, which will enable us to remain very close to them, which we'll do. But yet this needs some very strong investments and an internal disruption about how we go about our business. Yes, it's very interesting because on one hand, you have some new points of contact getting you closer to the clients because you're in their pockets, on their mobile phones, but also this creates a certain distance because they don't spend as much time face-to-face with you in the branches and agencies. Many thanks. I think that it would be good to go to the presentation of Sephora, as you have quite a large activity, especially in supporting and financing. We could maybe go to your presentation. Here you go, Sephora.
So we're talking about what has been learned, what our experience has been in the Democratic Republic of Congo in terms of digital. So we've made a study of the environment in which we are. So we've had a sort of a stagnation around about 8% of uptake. So between 8% and 19% in 2001, which is very different to Belgium and France, for example. So we have been able to increase the financial activity. So several factors come into play. So the banks and microfinance companies, institutions, cooperatives. We also have lots of 80 cooperative organizations as well. So in addition to these actors, we have two regulators who look after, so the central bank, the FRDC, who looks after the telecoms. For these particular actors, these particular players, they need to do to check that what happens in democratic cooperative contract. So economies of scale through partnerships is the direction in which we have gone. So today the question arises on the success of these financial operations, what's happened in the last few years. In a few years, from 4% to we've had partnerships. Therefore, we have several factors which have worked. So we have a favorable environment. We have a regulator who accepts that innovation is possible and insists on it. So in addition to this, we've started off this deployment in more earlier than in many countries. We have an approach which is where we see that So adaptive technology with telecoms has been of the essence. And in many more provinces of my country, in order to cover the country much further. So these partnerships give us an economy of scale, but also allow us to reach further. That's where we are today. I'm going to give you examples of innovatory partnerships. Equity, the BCBC, and Vodacash, who have created local banking. Vodacash, which allows people to have advice literally on the wall when they can go and talk to a screen. So lots of banking agents, banking offices allow this form of interaction. Okay, so let's talk about the mutations, the changes brought on by the pandemic. There's a lot of institutions could see the use of some of these new solutions, rather than saying that the positive side was. So the institutions, financial institutions, have realized that they need to get closer to the people they want to finance. The next service is going to be well, so we can have USBC approaches to be used through the bank's mobile money. So clients can self-register. So this sort of process has been facilitated by the new technology, and we can we made a study which shows that we have an increase of 33% in the number of transactions, and transfer services of 13% and 14% of financial services overall. And all of this is because financial institutions have understood that you need to get closer to the clients, and these partnerships allow us to do this. The financial institutions have faced many challenges. Internal organization, their own internal organization. We have the creation of new skills, new types of support, new types of jobs, the types of posts, things which did not exist long before COVID, in order to support clients, but also our strategic partners, who are today the people who are going to be the most use of us, and who also allow us to follow up with these transactions. We need to do quite a lot of reinforcement and intensify the transition of the financial institutions to find flexible and adapted solutions. So, of course, we have the transformation of the business, the new partners, all of whom create electronic cash, electronic money. We also have new commercial models from person to person. We have an ecosystem for the products. So the pandemic allowed us to do things in a different way, which is positive, whereas we need to create an ecosystem which will allow money to circulate. And this is very much what our partners are going to help us to do. And of course, this is the role of the regulator for the government, who's going to encourage people to work and to earn. That's a rapid overview of what's going on, and I'm happy to answer questions much later on. Thank you. So we've got a complete ecosystem which is taking place in this domain. But I think we've got a question about the partnerships and the comparability of the actors. So I'm going to ask to our colleagues.
Pour savoir un peu comment vous, de votre côté, vous utilisez les technologies numériques, développer votre activité, comment vous les intégrez au sein de...
How are you going to integrate these new technologies in the relationships we're having with clients?
Wakil, vous m'entendez?
Do you hear me, Wakil?
Oui, voilà. Merci, super. On n'a pas la caméra, néanmoins?
We don't have you on camera, Wakil.
C'est à vous, super, merci.
Okay, tout va bien. So in this area of the finances, we are a little bit behind the things. Today, the sort of operations that we undertake, we manage to do covering operations. It's just a recovery of years for people who are behind with their payments. So this is something which does not tie up particularly well with digitalization of our operations. So this is something which we're doing in collaboration with local banks. So with the new information system, we're still a little bit behind things. We have a great interest in this academy, which we're working with to learn from. And we're going to get technical assistance to help with our global reach in our operations. That's all I can say concerning that. What's the main opportunity in your operations? Is it in order to develop new services or become more effective, efficient? In terms of dematerialization, it's very important that we still go towards the public in ways which don't involve going to the bank. We go out to them. We'll soon not have a choice. So this is a trend which we will have to get used to. The whole ecosystem is going to go into the direction of digitalization. I'd like to take the opinion of the other panelists on this point. This is an evolution in the way of doing things. In addition to the services, these to become digitalized. Nicolas, maybe you have things to say on this as regards the cloud. Yes, absolutely. But the clients have expectations, particularly those who also are the most demanding. For them, today we need to be able to address a great number of needs. So you have a client who has a payroll, needs to withdraw cash, has expectations of being able to do this from a bank. So we need to look into the concrete needs of some of these clients. So we have a far larger a range of needs to reply to. Ayman, when you talk to financial clients who want to do this transformation of their operations, like I'm thinking of Société Générale on the continent, for financial banking instruments, what are the main keys, the fundamentals that you recommend that you should put in place, first of all, primarily? So in generally, the first point, I'm sorry, he's freezing every other word. So finally, to find out which role you were expecting from us so we can serve it. And everything flows from that, your strategy. Sadly, a different logic enters into play from other demands. So we need to think about their vision of the digital bank, what our clients really want from it, and then work from that, I think. So, l'accompagnement, so this is offering help to our clients when they come towards you. What are the main challenges which your clients need you to address, do you think? Yes, like we said, the main challenges are the institutions are saying we have to go to digitalize, and therefore we need to invest heavily in this. And yes, indeed, it is important. It's a strategy. If you have a strategy which is in place to do that, but change management needs thinking about, because your employees and your clients are the first people who are touched or affected by this, and it's they who will. This change is going to affect us at every levels, let's just say in the branch and in the center. Of course, we have the challenges of the needs and the expectations of the clients. We need to carry them with us. But we can see certain problems which we have developed, which create problems. And we've had to think further about the problems we create.
Well, that question is for Nicolas. Why do you prefer a technical solution internally rather than a cloud-based solution? It's true that these are totally different technological approaches. Well, today I'm not a cloud specialist, but what I do know is that the Societe Generale Group is working on the cloud and on the investment and financing part, and especially on the private cloud, because we also have some regulatory constraints that are quite strong in terms of how to deal and manage with personal data. The European regulation on data protection leads to some constraints in the environment and the CENAC environment, and the Banking Commission wants for the personal data staying in the area, which is not in favor of a cloud-based solution. So as I said, we have some very strong regulatory constraints, which oftentimes are behind and lagging behind the technological advances that we do know. Okay, many thanks. One last question that I had was regarding the access to human resources for the implementation of these strategies, of these systems. So Amen and Sephora are present with us. They're also with these capacities, but this question is maybe more for you, Nicolas and Wakil. Does that represent a challenge in identifying the resources and recruiting them? Yes, many thanks, Denis. Yes, please go ahead. Well, of course, if you follow the option to go towards new ways of working, of course, it will be indicated that we can train some people internally, or we could recruit some people who will come and support that change. So it is quite obvious that we cannot have such change without focusing on the human resources. We're talking about human capital that is necessary, that you need to have when executing such works and such projects. Many thanks, Wakil. And yeah, this creates, therefore, an opportunity for the youth, where we have a sector that can generate some quality jobs, future-oriented jobs, whether within the banking institution or whether within some council offices such as Deloitte or support offices, on the side from the economic and social impact that the solutions have on the whole of the productivity sector. As we support this is an area that creates some jobs and some high-quality jobs for the African youth. And I think that this is the right note on which to close that session. Wakil, Sephora, Nicolas, and Ayman, many thanks for your participation. I think that we could have carried on for another 30 or 45 minutes with our conversations, but we'll have other occasions to do so. And I hope that our audience have appreciated our discussions. Many thanks to everybody. Many thanks. And once again, I would want to apologize for being delayed in joining the session because I was in between two different situations with an urgent general admin meeting and back home. No worries. I'll jump back in. Wakil Ajibi, no worries about you arriving with a little delay. We're all running a little late today. So many thanks to all members of the panel for this session on and this panel on digitalization and waste of digitalized financial services, as well as Benoit Denis, senior economist of the digital infrastructure of the European Investment Bank. It was a very interesting session, and without further ado, because we are running short of time, we need to go to the next session before going to the closing discussion and dialogue with the audience. I'll suggest a 5 minutes break, and then I'll join you back straight away afterwards. Many thanks. Many thanks.